All right, here we go. Countdown time. All right, welcome to Music Industry City Music Power Hour here on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. Today, the SBA opens up again today. That is today, so we'll see how it holds up the website and why EDC had to reschedule. 2,000 non-masked people attend a hardcore show in Tompkins Square Park, New York. UK COVID certifications and universal offices are opening up. Plus, they've been up 9% last quarter. And we have your daily Spotify updates. The start of the week, whatever that means these days. We have a lot to discuss. But first, let's welcome my co-host, Eli Window. Eli, how are you?
I'm doing great, Peter. Happy Monday to you and everybody in the room. How are things?
Things are good. We just had a great little Good Day morning show. And so, I'm going to let you kind of take it away here because I know we got a lot to cover. There was a lot of news over the weekend. And for anybody, if you want to jump in the conversation, we're going to, just raise your hand and we'll bring you on up to the stage so you can have some feedback on some of the topics we talk about. And, if we miss inviting you, please just raise your hand. That probably means we just didn't see you because we're reading something. So, Eli, over to you. Let's kick it off with this day in history.
All right, let's check out what's happened on this day in history. In memory, today in 1997, Ernest Stewart, keyboard player with Casey and the Sunshine Band, unfortunately died of an asthma attack. Molly Hatchet singer Phil McCormick died, age 58, on this day, 2019, in memory. Moving on, happy birthday today to Italian singer, songwriter, DJ, and record producer Giorgio Moroder. Happy birthday today from 1960, Roger Taylor, drummer with Duran Duran. And also happy birthday today, born on this day, 1975, Joey Jordison, drummer with American heavy metal band Slipknot. Happy birthday. Moving on this day in history, 1982, out on a day's shopping, Rod Stewart was robbed by a gunman of his $50,000 Porsche on Hollywood Boulevard in Los Angeles. Bad day. On this day, 1988, Mick Jagger appeared in White Plains, New York federal court in the copyright infringement case brought by reggae singer Patrick Alley, who claimed the Mick Jagger solo track, Just Another Night, was a plagiarism of his own song of the same name. Alley was claiming $7 million in profits from the track in the suit. During the case, Sly Dunbar played drums to show the court how the beats were different in each song, and Mick sang and played demos of his song to show the court the development of the track. At the end of this week-long trial, Mick Jagger won the case. On this day, 1994, Grace Slick pled guilty to pointing a shotgun at police in her California home. She claimed she was under stress because her home had burned down the previous year. She was later sentenced to 200 hours of community service and told to attend 4 Alcoholics Anonymous meetings a week for 3 months. And on April 26, 2008, Amy Winehouse spent the night in custody after being arrested on suspicion of assault. Police said Winehouse had been in no fit state to be questioned when she arrived at the London station, and she was kept in the cells at that time. The 24-year-old was about to be questioned about an incident. It was said to have occurred 3 days earlier, and after a 38-year-old man claimed that he was assaulted. Tough day for Amy Winehouse, April 26, 2008. And that's it for this day in history. Peter, over to you.
Right on. Is it me or is it this day in history sound like there was a lot to do with police, lawsuits, a lot going on there?
It seems like maybe there were a lot of full moons on this day in history or something. I'm not sure.
Well, we do have our first full moon of the first pink moon. Is that it? Something like that? It's called the pink moon or something's happening.
Yeah.
So anyway,
we'll find out in the weather report.
Exactly. There may or may not be a moon. Oh no! I hope I didn't ruin the weather report's surprise.
Did you see my notes, Peter? Come on, you stole my line.
Right on. All right. Well, with that being said, let's get into the news. All right. So how we do this is going to go through a few articles and we'll read directly from them. And if you want to read alone at home, you can go to musicindustrycity.com and click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic. And that will take you to the show notes, which we have all the links to the headlines that we are covering. And we update that, we keep that list going throughout the week. And then we come to the Friday week in review. So when we have our week in review, you can pull up something you want to talk about in case we missed it. And again, what we're doing is if you have some quick comments here after I read, I'll take just a slight pause or I'll just move right into the next article. And for the back half hour, what we do is we open up as an industry roundtable and you can throw out, it's like, hey, let's talk about this, that, or the other thing. And this one, I know, I think, Elliot couldn't stay, and I know this was important, I think, but this one is in Variety, and it was the SBA shuttered venue website reopening is moved to today. So the update is more than 4 months after the $16 billion Save Our Stages Act was signed into law, and more than 2 weeks after the website through which venues could apply for federal aid launched and immediately crashed, the Small Business Administration says it will reopen today at 12 p.m. Eastern. So, hey, if anybody is applying for something, leave the show, go over there, fill out that application, go do it. But the thing is, they're saying it was open today, not Saturday, as it previously scheduled. The SBA moved the date after what it politely described as, quote, stakeholder feedback about reopening on Saturday. Independent music venues and theaters in the U.S., which have been mostly shuttered for 13 months now, greeted the news with a combination of relief, deep cynicism, and annoyance that it's happening on a weekend. But because the money will be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis and is likely to go quickly, there is little choice in the matter. So the SBA posted on their Twitter account, "We heard you and we are taking action in response to this stakeholder feedback about reopening the shuttered venue operators grant application this weekend. The application will now open on Monday." And continue to say what they're doing is while working with the vendors to fix technology issues that occurred with the April 8th initial opening, the SBA identified and resolved other concerns and enhanced the applicant experience with the portal. Here's the following updates. Clarifying and making program documentation more user-friendly, improving application portal security mechanisms, adding an industry-standard waiting room technology to address the high interest in the program and provide an orderly application process for fair and smooth performance, and updating application features, including a new revenue chart, the ability to upload multiple attachments, and an improved application flow to match the eligible entity types and their respective required documentation. All right, so make sure to head on over there. The article does go into more detail here, but if you are looking to apply, get out of here now and go do it. So,
yeah, go run.
I've never heard anyone say that. I love it.
Go do it.
Leave my room. Leave my room.
Get out of here and go do it because it's going to be a first come, first serve. All right, fair play. This is one from Billboard.com. This has been something that's been a discussion for a little bit here. This is fair play. Artist managers reignite war on record deals. The article starts off, a coalition of artist advocates is pushing a California law that would let acts get out of recording contracts after 7 years without penalty, reviving a decades-old legislative battle. As the ongoing music industry boom puts labels under renewed pressure to make recording contracts more equitable and transparent, the next battle over the creators' rights will be fought in Sacramento, California, where artist managers and their allies are lobbying to change the state's, quote, 7-year statute. This was enacted in 1937 after the judgment in actress Olivia de Havilland's lawsuit against Warner Bros. Pictures. California Labor Code Section 2855 limits personal service contracts for state residents to 7 years. In 1987, however, the law was amended with the major label's support to allow record companies to sue for damages, including potential revenue, if an artist attempts to leave after 7 years, but before delivering the required number of albums in a contract. In 2001, a group of artists and managers, including Irving Azoff, and backed by the Recording Artists Coalition he co-founded with Don Henley and Sheryl Crow, attempted to repeal the 1987 amendment without success. Now, 2 days later, they're trying again. So it goes on to a lot more information here and talks about what they're trying to do is, quote, we've been trying to do quickly the hard work necessary to get the supporters and opponents to talk about some of the issues, then engage the community and allow the creatives to be able to have a voice and talk about some of their issues directly with some of the members. However, COVID-19 restrictions were slowing down the process, so they opted to postpone the hearing, and AB 1385 now becomes a 2-year bill. So this is a reform that they're talking about. I mean, this goes back to, the different areas, and this is that for, California has different laws on the record. And basically, and Mitch Glazier, from the RIAA chairman and CEO, says if the bill passes, it could make a label think twice about signing a California artist. And without a means to recover damages, quote, you're going to crumble the entire economic model that lets labels invest in unproven acts. Label sources estimate that 10% of acts make the money that funds the other 90%. Artist managers essentially argue that their acts should be treated the same as athletes and actors under the California law, while the RIAA and the labels say that comparison doesn't make sense for artists who divide their time between recording and touring. Quote, if you are an athlete, you're signed for a certain number of seasons. If you're an actor, filming a series is going to last a certain amount of time. Continues, an artist is asked to make a record and expected to tour, and the better the records do, the longer the tour. Setting contract terms by time instead of productivity, he says, would be bad for both sides and takes creative time clock out of the artist's hands. So it does go on in much more detail. It's something to pay attention to. Is anybody, managing artists or an artist that, is any kind of deal structure? Any thoughts on this before I move on?
I do have a couple thoughts. Well, just one really, and it made me wonder do you think it would ever eventually go back to the 90s when they're just handing out deals to anybody at that point? Like, would that come from transparency, or are those days just gone?
I don't, handing out deals to anybody has never really been a thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's like saying make record deals rain from the heavens again, and I don't remember when record deals rained from the heavens.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it a lot from like the 90s boy bands days. Like specifically, they were saying that.
Not so much. I mean, you're going to hear, it's all hearsay. I mean, it's a different era. It's a different era than the 80s, where the 80s was about the CD, and the explosion was, a lot of revenue was flowing back in because of the new medium. And then A&Rs were signing. I think it was more of a kind of I would say the 80s was more maybe just, opulence. The 80s was opulent, and there was more signings happening for the one-hit wonders. That's why we'd have that, you buy a CD for $17.99, and there would be one song on it, and people would complain about that. So then there was a pushback along that lines, and they started doing a little more into development, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it just feels like it would be easier now to take a chance on an artist with singles being the market,
Yeah. Well, they are still doing artist development. So no matter what you hear, if somebody says, labels aren't developing artists, they are.
They definitely are.
Yeah, they take their time with some artists. So, all right, so let's move over to this one. This is good news. This is from Variety. And once again, you can find these the links to all these articles in the show notes, which is at musicindustrycity.com. And you can click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes with all the links. So this one, we liked Universal Music to begin reopening U.S. offices in September. Universal Music Group will begin a phased reopening of its U.S. offices on September 13th. A source close to the situation confirms to Variety. The directive applies to the company's main offices in Los Angeles, both the Capitol Building in Hollywood and the UMG mothership in Santa Monica. New York and Nashville, the announcement was made via memo from the Chief People and Inclusion Officer, Eric Hutchinson. Both Hutchinson and the source noted that the reopening will depend on guidelines from local officials, and at this early stage, many details remain unclear. Whether the, quote, phased return will be based on departments, labels, floors, etc., employees were strongly advised to keep most meetings remote via Zoom or phone. Employees are required to wear masks in the offices. Along with this, Warner Music Group told its employees several months ago that it planned a phased return to its offices in September, source tells Variety, although those plans are tentative based on guidelines from local officials. Sony Music's plans were unclear at the time of the article's publications. This is also ties in with the news that, about, Thursday's UMG's quarterly earnings report, which we're going to talk about a little more in depth tomorrow. But the overview here is that, during the company announced that its plans for the UMG's IPO have moved up slightly from by the end of 2021 to this fall. Universal revenues went up 9.4% thanks to the growth in subscription and streaming revenues, which was up 19.6%. Recorded music revenues grew by 10.8%, while physical sales were up 14.8%, driven by bigger sales of new releases and catalog titles. We're going to be talking a bit more about that quarterly report in tomorrow's news, but this is, I'm really happy to hear this. Things are looking up.
Oh my gosh, me too. This makes me really excited. Give me a little sliver of hope here and there. I can't wait to see some live shows come back.
Right on. And with music. Yeah. And with that being said, good news, but let's check in with the weather.
All right. Taking a look at the local weather where you are now, because we do have listeners streaming in and listening in on Clubhouse from all over the world. So thanks for joining us. Taking a look at your local weather where you are right now, the historic supermoon that is happening on this date will not be wearing a cape. And that's it for your weather report. Over to you, Peter.
Right on. All right. So one of the things that we talked about and that made the news was, Electric Daisy Carnival and in Las Vegas. And there was the big push that they were saying, we are going full steam ahead with this. And then they announced the dates. And then they said, oh, my bad. Sorry about that. And, so things had to change really quick. But, it's a lot to be said. And here's from EDMtunes.com. This one talks about how EDC Las Vegas failed to launch in May. So here's a lot of things that, might not take into consideration, or people who are in this industry, in that sector, really already know. So Electric Daisy Carnival's Las Vegas on then off in May roller coaster left thousands of dance music fans wondering what the heck happened. Why would Insomniac CEO Pasquale Rotella announce that the festival is moving forward next month if it wasn't going to? Well, it's complicated, the article states. Here's a glimpse to what went down in the 12 days between the announcing and backtrack. So day one, and I'm not going to go through every single day again. You can find this in the show notes, but they submitted its first on day one on April 8th, submitted its large gathering COVID-19 preparedness and safety plan to the Nevada Office of Business and Industry. And it's obtained by billboards, indicated that Rotella could have pursued a permit for EDC at 50% capacity at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway under the March 12th emergency rule. That would have meant 100,000 fans could attend the festival. However, documents appear to reflect that Insomniac pushed for a capacity of 200,000, saying having an EDC with half that attendance would make throwing the festival financially difficult, sources told Billboard. So the first application acknowledged the 50% capacity rule, and then states officials immediately rejected the application, knowing the governor's 50% capacity rule. But Rotella still posted 3, 2, 1 countdown posts on social media, and he told fans to book your flights. So it goes on day 8 on April 15th and submitted a second application which abided by the 50% capacity rule, and that capped again 1,000 attendees. But he didn't cancel at that point because during the the Nevada Office of Business and Industry representative said that second plan was rejected on April 16th. So things were changing, and then day 13, unluckily for Rotella, the county officials on Tuesday announced they were updating their plan to up the vaccination rate requirement from 50% to 60% of residents. The hurdles then became massive, with Insomniac's second application rejected and the county's new 60% vaccination requirement. Late Tuesday, hours after the county commission approved the increase to 60%, Rotella finally announced that EDC would be postponed to October 22nd to the 24th. It was done with great reluctance. Rotella explained in a social media post that Insomniac had 40 trucks en route to the Speedway, and the lineup had been fully booked, set to announce the following day. All right, so this, it was taking a chance. It was a gamble, and things like people booking their flights there's some, something to be whole about. They didn't get the permits. It was rejected twice, and they still didn't cancel it or postpone it. And it's like so people were still under the impression like, hey, we can book flights. Any thoughts on this move?
I think it's great. I'm planning on doing some flying soon.
Hey, just a comment. I think what honestly happened in the breakdown of what was going down was that the county switched up their position. I think that at one point, everyone was on the same page, and then at the breaking point, Rotolia and they just had a dispute when it came down to it, and I think it was wrong for them to play on the heartstrings of people, and especially like people who are diehard fans of them, because they weren't aware of that, of what was really going down. But I think if people were investigating and really looking into it a different way, they would realize that was going to be the ultimate case.
I mean, it was a long shot in the first place. I mean, they talk about day one, and they were saying that they didn't get the permit, and then day 8 they didn't get they got their second permit rejected. So it was kind of like right off the bat, they knew going in it was going to be a difficult challenge. And then I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the 50 to 60% change in the COVID vaccination. But the thing was, it's that's 2 weeks of promoting something that you don't have a permit for.
Yeah, exactly. And then not to mention,
I think
they had their position of, I guess, let's keep it going. Let's, keep all these, I guess, really important plays in part, and not thinking of the fans as terrible, and it's going to hurt their reaction, in the future, I think, because people are really upset.
Yeah, I mean, we see with the Ultrafest, like the difference between a cancellation and a postponement. And Ultrafest Miami is getting sued because they won't refund tickets because they said it was postponed, and that was twice. But on the flip side, they are refusing to pay vendors, saying that it was canceled. So you have to pick one lane at that point. You can't tell your vendors it's canceled and then tell the fans and the ticket holders that it was just postponed.
Well, it's different because when you buy a ticket, right, you're implying, when you buy a ticket, it's saying rain or shine. Most of the case, it's like a contract, you agreeing to it. That's for the fan. But also, it's different when an artist or a vendor, it's now a force majeure situation. And I think a lot of times beforehand, before COVID, that people weren't prepared for situations if an act of God or what if so, what happened, and the whole entire thing is that now, like what you said, a cancellation or reschedule, what does it mean? In the same time, in the future, though, they whole entire, I guess, constructs of how that's moving forward is critical of, the whole entire way of how they do business, because the people, when they're, doing all these large contracts and things and bundling them up, they're only, getting ready for partial of the funds, and if that whole entire infrastructure in their banking are already owed monies to people beforehand, and they're making an agreement and waiting on the fate of other people, it's a very dangerous game of chicken.
Yeah. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts? Because I'd like to also, unless somebody wants to jump in right away, and the fact is, and then we're gonna table this over to the back end because I still want to get through a couple more live music segments there. So anybody have just like a quick sentence they wanted to chime in on? Okay.
I just wanted to say, as long as I can remember, EDC has always been kind of that rogue festival that goes and tries out the thing that nobody's ever tried and gets more people than anyone's ever gotten. And it doesn't surprise me that they would have been first out of the gate, but brave move, but definitely something that we.
Yeah, hey, Angela. Good to see you. Welcome back. Hope you had a good weekend. All right. Speaking of live music, over 2,000 people packed New York City Park for a hardcore show headlined by Madball. And this is in metalinjection.net. Hardcore matinee billed as a benefit for concert for the New York City Firefighters Burn Foundation. And what was to technically be the first and easily largest hardcore punk metal or rock show since the pandemic began in March 2020, over 2,000 people packed the famed Tompkins Square Park in New York City, a stone's throw away from the old CBGBs. And this was a matinee billed as a benefit for the New York Firefighters Burn Foundation. The show was put together by Black and Blue Productions, the same people who threw This Is Hardcore Fest. The show did not charge for tickets, but pointed people to a GoFundMe where they could donate towards a $6,000 fundraising goal, which has been met as of time of this publication. All right, so what this is drawing a lot of outrage from people, and quote, the current law, not quote, but the current law in New York, according to Governor Andrew Cuomo, is that, quote, outdoor venues with 2,500 person and over capacity can begin holding live concerts at 20% capacity. Proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test would be required for entry. Blood Clot frontman John Joseph pushed back at criticism that the show did not follow guidelines. He compared the lack of social distancing to various protests and other public gatherings, saying, quote, for the last year in New York City, there were protests, tens of thousands of people in the streets, some rioting and looting engaging in bias attacks. Nobody said shit. The media condoned it. On 4/20, thousands filled Washington Square Park sharing blunts and weed pipes. No mask. Again, nobody said shit. This was our fucking protest. This was our rally. People came out from all over the country and enjoyed live music. Those who didn't want to come stayed away. Good nobody missed their ass. They were free to live in fear, hide under their table, and talk shit on social media. And this was a lot of, there's a lot of people that are up in arms about this, and there are photos in this article. And you can see a lot the Twitter outrage, but also a lot of Twitter support. And we're talking. If you look at the pictures, it's basically, I think you can see one mask in a sea of thousands of people. Any thoughts on this?
I think that if the last 12 or 14 months has taught us anything as a planet, it's that what's good for the goose ought to be good for the gander.
And we talked about it a little earlier, saying that as restrictions lighten up, there's definitely going to be people, abusing, taking a lot more rope than needed. So, hopefully this, we're not going to see negative effects from this. And we're still waiting on that report from the Barcelona COVID.
Barcelona.
Yeah, I mean, that 5,000 attendee, and that's a month ago now. And they were supposed to, after 2 weeks, and they were researching, writing the report. They were supposed to submit it probably around April 17th. So hopefully we're going to see that soon.
They have announced a full summer schedule of concerts in Barcelona now.
Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of them are outdoor. But there are some indoor ones. So I don't know if they have those results back and just haven't published them and the city is aware of them, but they have announced a full schedule of concerts through the summer.
Do you remember the specific venue that held the concert, and have they announced any shows?
Yes, it was the Palau Sant Jordi Arena, which is the Olympic Arena. Just a second. I'm checking their schedule now.
All right, we're going to get back to that then. So while we're still talking about overseas, we just have, let's see, what time is it? We have one more. This is from Complete Music Update. Music reps support COVID status certifications, but warn they must be temporary and non-discriminatory. A number of representatives of the UK creative industries have written to Prime Minister Boris Johnson supporting COVID status certification measures in order to reopen venues without social distancing. However, they have stressed that any such measures should be temporary and not be based solely on whether or not a person has received a COVID-19 vaccination. Representing the music industry signatories, we have, goes on for a whole list here, and there's talking about this, but they add that, quote, recognize that this can be only achieved through gathering evidence that is safe to remove or lessen restrictions, including look at how COVID status certification could aid in the reduction of social distancing. Many people support COVID status certification, whereby audience members must prove their COVID status in order to access a show as means to open up venues, though many of those supporters only reluctantly back the proposed measure, seeing it as a necessary evil. Certification of that kind remains controversial, of course, with claims that it will create a two-tier society with millions potentially locked out of cultural activities in the UK. This would be particularly true if the only way for a person to gain access to venues was to show that they have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The article goes into more detail, and what they add is, we are also clear that this approach must not be discriminatory, should protect privacy, and have clear exit criteria. If all this holds true, then we are very much supportive of the continued exploration of this possibility to bring life back to normal as soon as possible. Angela, you hearing anything over there? And Andy, about this? I know we've talked about the COVID passes and things like that. Any other updates on this that you're hearing?
I'm not going to have anything until after, like I say, at the weekend, they're doing that controlled event in Liverpool that my friend Bob is the tour manager for the headlining band. So I'll have more information on the completely maskless control that they're doing. But from everybody that I hear in the industry over here that I've been talking to, bands are starting to release more dates. Obviously, Reading and Leeds are going ahead as of now. There hasn't been any rollback to it yet. And I don't know if Andy's heard more, but it seems like everybody's forging ahead with their fingers crossed, hoping that once we get some data from some of these controlled events, that they'll be able to either say, yes, we can do this at either a different capacity, or as far as I'm told, the 21st of June is still our date for no restrictions, masks off, do as you like, return to normalcy. But that's also provided that everybody that's meant to get their vaccine does. And I'm or the youngest I've heard has been 44 this week. So 44-year-olds and up have all been given them.
Very good. Thank you for that. Andy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I don't actually have any news. I think anecdotally, the only ones that I've seen coming up in terms of scheduling are ones that are actually pulling out of June this year and going to June next year, which was a little bit scary. But interesting, the term necessary evils. I think during a pandemic, there's going to be quite a few of those.
Right on. All right, we are going to get to just now the Spotify daily update.
We have to do the Spotify update. Before we get into our daily Spotify spot, I want to take just a moment and reset our room here on Clubhouse for iOS and welcome everybody to the stage. I want to say also welcome to all of our listeners in the audience and also across streaming platforms. Here at the Music News Power Hour, we are streaming and on Clubhouse live from 12 to 1 Eastern, so you can listen to us not only on Clubhouse, but across several platforms. If there's anything you'd like to add to the discussion, please go ahead and put your hands up, which means something completely different here than it does at the club. But please feel free to put your hand up. We'll be happy to bring you to the stage. We would love for you to join our discussion or share a piece of news that we might have missed. We read the headlines in the top half of the show, and we are about to move into our roundtable discussion where we will open up the floor. Let's quickly move on to our Spotify spot before we open the roundtable, though, Peter.
Right on. Let's do it. Okay. Thank you, Eli. We have two quick Spotify updates. I mean, it was really funny. It was, I was looking at Spotify updates, and there's so many, so I had to carry a couple over for tomorrow. But it was one of those weekends or just past few days, so there's a lot going on there. But this one comes from Billboard as well, and this one says, is the Spotify stock soars 8% ahead of first quarter earnings. So starts off, Spotify's shares jumped 8% on Friday, April 23rd, following an analyst buy rating at a $360 price target, a 26.7% premium over the $284,811 closing price. Ahead of Spotify releases first quarter earnings on Wednesday, Jefferies analyst Andrew Urquhart predicted that the streaming giant would become, quote, the primary audio platform for creators and has substantially long-term opportunity in his initial report of the company. This vote of confidence helped Spotify's share price, which it lost 26.7% since hitting the 387.44 on February 22nd, valuing the company at $73 billion. That fall is perhaps a sign that investors were too enthusiastic about exclusive podcast deals and that spoken word will help improve Spotify's margins. All right, and Spotify's first quarter's numbers probably won't disappoint, although it might not impress either. Universal Music Group's first quarter streaming revenues, of which Spotify is the largest contributor, were 1.9% lower than the previous quarter. Its parent company, Vivendi, revealed in an earnings call on Thursday. That's no cause for concern, given Universal streaming business shrank by the same amount earlier. Spotify certainly isn't predicting big numbers. Its first quarter guidance is 1.99 billion euros, and that's to 2.19 billion euros of revenue, a modest range compared to the 2.17 billion of revenue it posted in the fourth quarter of 2020. All right, so we are going to dig in deeper tomorrow on the discussion about these quarterly earnings and with some more stock numbers for Spotify and also with Universal. But on a different note, aligned with Spotify, this one is from NME.com. And also thank you, Angela, for shooting over an article about this. This one and is called Social Media Reacts to Spotify CEO Wanting to Buy Arsenal FC. Quote, pay the artist first. And once again, you can find all the links to these headlines in our show notes, which is at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhead Information Center graphic, and that'll take you to the show notes where you can get all the links. And what we do is we tally them up throughout the week. So we have the Friday week in review, and we reset the list on Monday. So to start off this article, Spotify CEO Daniel Ek has expressed an interest in buying Arsenal FC if it was ever go up for sale. It comes after thousands of angry fans amassed outside the club's Emirates Stadium prior to its game against Everton on Friday, April 23rd, to protest its current owner, American billionaire Stan Kroenke. Arsenal were one of the 6 Premier League clubs that initially agreed to join a new constructed European Super League, a breakaway competition designed at rivaling the Champions League. The controversial move was met with widespread criticism and protests from fans up and down the country. The club has since pulled out of the league. All right, so Daniel goes on saying, quote, as a kid growing up, I've cheered for Arsenal as long as I can remember. If KSE would like to sell Arsenal, I'd be happy to throw my hat in the ring. Many have taken to social media to respond to X tweet, including Charlatans frontman Tim Burgess, who wrote, quote, could we ask that you get things sorted out with musicians before jumping in with footballers? Continuing along the line of the same, many users alluded to criticism that Spotify has faced in recent years that doesn't compensate artists enough for their work, even joking that Arsenal players wouldn't accept being paid 0.000007 pence. All right, so it's created a whole stir, and they're just saying, pay the artist before you buy a football team. And that is going to be it for the news read. Let's open up to the roundtable.
Hey, Spotify, pay artists.
Peter, this is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, good to see you.
I have a couple of short, quick things that are all sort of music related that are kind of fun. Producer Michael Wagner is announcing his retirement. This is the man that has done a lot of metal for 50 plus years. He has had his hands in albums of uncountless numbers. On top of that, to keep the ball rolling, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden is doing a spoken word tour this summer in the UK, only 6 dates. And that should prove to be an interesting thing to see how they do that. And then a fun story on Kerrang, the story of British punk in 23 songs. A very fun little read, quite nostalgic to read some of the songs. And then that was the 3 music ones. The one that's not related to music, but it is related to the New York concert. The biggest problem I see with everything is the fact that our government isn't homogenizing all the rules. And you have a state senator from Alaska just got banned from flying on Alaska Airlines because of her long-standing views on masks and vaccination policies. And she finally had an argument with the airline getting on a flight, and they've banned her for life from flying with Alaska Air.
Wait, say that again. A senator? A state senator?
A state senator.
State senator.
So let me pull up her name so I can say it correctly. Come on, open it up.
I'm really also more interested about the Bruce Dickinson spoken word tour. Is he going to be this reciting Maiden lyrics?
I don't know what
I hope so.
It's going to be him discussing lyrics and a Q&A. So it's going to be him doing basically some a cappella probably of some of the lyrics and discussing the process behind some of the songs, and then having a Q&A on whatever subjects people bring up.
Right on. That sounds really interesting.
That should be fun. Those are going to be, there's 6 dates. They're all in the UK. They start Thursday, the 29th. They got scheduled tickets going on sale on the 29th. They're all scheduled for August. It's like a week and a half long. He's going to bounce between 6.
So I'd really be interested in seeing that actually. So, so while you're digging up the other information, I'd like to, open this up for anybody else that had some comments. I mean, we covered a lot as we always do. The SBA, the SBA shuttered venues website reopening to open today. The Fair Play, the Artist Managers Reignite War on Record Labels, and that goes with the in the California, where it is the Fair Play, where they're talking about the 7-year contract that people can get out of. Also in EDC Las Vegas, what went wrong during their failed launch and how they had to reschedule. And also the 2,000 people showed up for a concert in Tompkins Square Park, and pretty much none of them had a mask on. What's going on with the UK with COVID status certifications and Spotify. Always a day of Spotify. Is there anything that stuck out in particular to anybody out there you want to react, had a comment, or if there's something else you wanted to bring to the table? Don't be shy. And anybody in the audience, you can also raise your hand.
It's Monday. Don't be shy. I know that we're all kind of recovering from the weekend. Hopefully it was a great weekend for you as well. But yeah, please don't be shy. We don't bite hard.
Hey, Peter, this is Jamie. Would you like me to read off the short of this article?
Yeah, let's pull up the short on that one.
All right. So, Alaska State Senator Laura Reinbold clashed with staffers over mask rules. The airline went back to the fact that people had filmed her arguing with staff before getting on the plane. And in the past, she has blasted the airline as being mask tyrants, uptight employees at the counter and on planes, and she has written up on Facebook and other places pushing her views on vaccination policies of why they were wrong and mask policies is why they were wrong. So much so that her own party, who the governor is of her own political party, does not want to do any more chair hearings in her committees that she leads. That her policies over.
Right. That's going to have, it's really interesting. I thought that was just interesting because even though it's outside the music, because I mean, we're talking about the fact that some people, if you aren't, I mean, think about it right now. You're making a statement or you get banned from flying on an airline. And the fact is, okay, for right now, that might suck. But what about in 3 years, 5 years? If you're permanently banned from an airline, I mean, I don't know how long these things are. I've never had to deal with something like that. So it's like...
Well, and furthermore, if you're permanently banned from Alaska Airlines, I'm sure that there's a limit to how many other airlines fly in and out of Alaska. Let's be real, and on what kind of schedules.
The article goes on to say that she just put herself into having a 14-hour drive to get from her constituencies into Juneau because Alaska Airlines was the only flight that flew there.
Right. So, and as things open back up and if people aren't tour. So, artists, people in the industry, be careful. Please just obey, what we have to deal with. We've been dealing with a lot. It's getting better, but just, don't try to fight it in that sense of like that is a losing battle. That right there is a losing battle. Nobody wins out of this because if you're kicked off the flight, well, you're not getting to wherever it is you're supposed to be on time. It's affecting other people. I mean, this is one of those kind of like, we got to suck it up.
it's still astonishing to me that there isn't a nationwide governing body in America that's been put into place to protect the industry for when tours do start. Because if you leave everything up to the states to manage their individual processes, then you have to learn, 30 or 40 different sets of criteria just to carry out a tour that could last for less time that would even be almost worth it it would take to learn all of that. Not to mention the precautions that have to be put into place just to work in tandem with every state's specific quality assurance. I mean, it's no surprise that smaller countries are having a much easier time of sort of planning for what will become large scale events in future, because they're singing from one hymn sheet. Whereas I feel for you guys. I mean, you could have one set of rules in Texas and another set of rules in Oklahoma and be literally on the other side of the street from each other. I mean, it's not like COVID knows what state you're in.
That's how, I mean, everything since the beginning. Hi, this is Wayne. Everything since the beginning of the pandemic has been this way in the US. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Like, all these states have different rules. Half the states care, half the states don't. It's just, it's nuts.
And that goes along with the challenge of, you hear it a lot. It's like, how do you compare the U.S. to a Nordic country? I mean, we're talking about there's more people in one of our cities than the entire country. And, whether it's looking at the economic system like a social democracy and comparing that to how to, be able to enforce throughout our country a one governing rule when individual states have their own rules. I mean, and and the thing is about our states, and without getting too deep into it, all our states have different licensing agreements with the United States in a sense. Look at what Texas really is. If you do some history on Texas, Texas is a state in a sense that they could probably just become their own country a lot easier than many other states in the U.S. I mean, it's like a lease. It really, like, I'm really just broad stroking it there, but look into what Texas is. Look into some of these other states, because each have an agreement with the United States, and each one's different. It's a contract.
Hey, Peter, what you're saying about the states, one of the best articles to see how that played out was the giant power failure and utility failure that happened this winter in Texas. It is because Texas opted out of the national shared grid. They decided they did not want to share power transmission and power generation with any of their neighboring states. So they took themselves out of it. That meaning that when they had a demand higher than what they could generate, they had a massive failure. And this is one of the things where the National Utilities Commission had been warning them since the mid-'80s, when deregulation happened, that they needed to bring their systems up to snuff with the rest of the country. And they opted out of that. And they opted out again in the 90s. They opted out again in the 2000s. They opted out again after the hurricane ripped through Houston. And then this winter, they had it fail on them massively to the point where they had people out of power for 70 days.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy what was going on. But that's what, when people talk about the United States, it's 50 independent countries that are maybe interdependent. I guess that might be the word to describe it, as interdependent on the U.S. as a whole country. So anything back on the music side, if anybody's seeing or hearing from their area what is going on with live music, that is always, I mean, this is the barometer that we're kind of going with. Is anybody seeing anything that is changing in their area? I know there's people from around the world here and from different areas, parts of the U.S. in their own country of where it might be. So I wanted to see if anybody else had some updates that they would like to share. And Elliot,
Peter,
I do know. Well, hold on, Jamie. I want to get. I think I just saw Elliot in here. Elliot, are you here?
I am here for the moment. I am actually on a job site today with an actual band. I wish I could say we had an audience, but we're filming a band in my theater, and it's just good to hear someone tune drums and, tune up guitars and such. And we're going to film them for some corporate event they were supposed to perform live at. But they're going to film their set here and broadcast it at the event in a couple of days. But it's just good to see my crew and see my people and, get a little dirty again.
Right, get
I
the
wish I had
hands
more
dirty.
to add on the opening up front, but we're actually going to hear a live band today.
Oh
Hold
my
up
gosh,
the phone while they're drum tuning.
Elliot, I can hear the hi-hats going in the background, and it's making me really excited.
Yeah, I popped in earlier, but then, I'm the crew chief here, so I'm getting pulled in different directions. I just, so I'm in and out of the room, but it feels good, to hear that kick drum kind of kick you in the chest,
Yeah, there we
There we
go.
go.
Yeah, listen to that sound.
I wish this app had a video we could like FaceTime or whatever.
Elliot, just hang out and let us listen to sound check.
Just for the record, we have a band called Almost Queen. They're a Queen tribute act. They're actually really spot on when they play, so it'll be familiar music and good stuff. Like I said, I wish I could report we're going to have people in the house, but we're not just there yet.
Baby steps, baby steps.
Baby steps, yeah. And I did hear the last little bits of that conversation about 50 states might as well be 50 different countries with 50 different governments telling us what's going to go on. And it's, it's frustrating. I wish we had more guidance, but we'll get there. We will get there.
I don't know. I'm just happy to hear that drums. Great
I want
acoustics.
to hear check 1, 2.
We're not quite there. Here comes guitars. They're getting there. We're close.
I have the uncontrollable urge to start calling focus.
It happened. We put a guy up in the truss. We've actually done our Lico focus, and we're going to have a guy on follow spot because we're filming, and so it's all happening. It's coming back. It's like muscle memory.
Love it. This is so
That's
great
what
to hear.
happiness
Yeah.
sounds
This is fun. Yeah. Let's give him a round of applause. We have our own concert going on right now. Love it. I think this is making everybody's morning.
Every little bit I can do.
This is great.
I can get closer. I don't know if anybody will be able to talk. But
Let's do it. Let's just hang out.
I'm really, my desk is practically on the stage.
Peter, this is what it looks like when there's too much rock for one hand.
This is great. I don't know. Should we just let this ride? We do have to start wrapping up though. Elliot.
Play us out, keyboard cat.
Yeah. Elliot, why don't you just mute out for 1 second? I just want to start doing a wrap up and then we'll come back to you. We'll close out the show with you live, all right? How's that sound? All right. All right, so we have just about 5 minutes, so I just wanted to, get everybody wrapped up. Any final thoughts? I want to just kind of go around with anything that you're seeing in the news or there's something you had, any kind of comments. I just want to go, I'm just going to run the room. Does anybody one final comment? If you don't have a comment, I know it's cool. You might be like, hey, listen, I just wanted to chill out here. But I'm going to run the reverse order of the room. Anything that you wanted to just say? Jeff, any thoughts come to mind?
Oh, sorry. I'm kind of new to the music industry, so you don't want to hear what I have to say.
All right. Ben.
Thanks, though.
Thanks, Jeff. Ben.
Hi, Peter. Yeah, we're sort of preparing a holographic show for Istanbul on July the 4th, which should be really cool because we've never done one of these before. There's still, a question mark sitting over it. And there's a question mark a week later on the Poland Festival in a castle up in, some part of Poland. I can't remember where, but again, question marks all over the place. So Whether we ever get to do them or not, I think we'll know in about a month.
Right
Only
on.
time will tell.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Mike?
Looks like Barcelona's Palau Sant Jordi Arena has concerts starting on May 22nd, almost every weekend through July, and they are all Spanish artists, but big ones that can sell out.
Right on. Thanks, Mike. Greg?
All right. Thanks for the update on that. Greg?
Hey, guys. I found you on YouTube.
How's it
Peter
look?
Looks a little different. Peter looks a little different than his icon, but it's weird to see my face on YouTube.
Let me just scroll you back up into the frame
how
there.
How do you think I feel, Greg?
Well, you guys are on a bunch of platforms. I'm interested in learning a little bit about this technology. I see Twitch also.
Oh yeah, we're on about 8 different live stream platforms right now.
I can't even name 8. Someday you'll tell us how that magic works. So thank you guys.
It's the secret sauce.
That's a whole separate room, though. There's a lot to it. That's a whole separate room. We'll have to do a separate room on that.
Live streaming. Hold on, wait, sorry. Yeah. Live streaming room, Eli. Would you like to hold a live streaming?
Well, I mean, I have my live streaming room, but we'll have to do a separate room on Peter's live streaming techniques. Joe Cat, any final thoughts for us as we wrap these final few moments of the Music News Power Hour today?
I will leave you guys with a quote. Music is the wine that fills the cup of silence.
Beautiful,
nice.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, it is indeed. Wayne, we're wrapping up. Any final thoughts for us?
Just wanted to say thanks to Peter for hosting these Music News Power Hours. This is really, really great. Admittedly, I'm not nearly as business oriented as I need to be. I'm trying to work on that. So this is a great way to learn about what's actually really going on in the industry, and I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you, Wayne. Thanks for joining us. It's always great to have you as part of the discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Lindsay, any final thoughts for us? It's good to see you too.
Hey, I actually was at Berlin for a show on Friday with the 25% capacity, which was quite interesting. So, but yeah, I'll leave it with that.
Were there masks in place?
Yeah, everyone was really, well, the whole issue with it, with concert things, is as soon as someone goes towards the front of the stage, then obviously another person will think, well, then I can do that. And that quickly happened, but it wasn't enough people or like a crowd that was like very rowdy, at least, type of thing. But it was still enough to make me and the sound guy cringe if there was video and it said Berlin on it for them to get shut down, type of thing. And they didn't have any food when they said you had to buy food just as a legal thing. It was just kind of like, okay, guys. But they had everything else, I mean, considering it's Berlin, done pretty well.
Right on.
Interesting. All right, let's move on. Jamie, thanks for joining us today and for the updates that you brought to us. Any final thoughts for us? We are wrapping up this Music News Power Hour.
Well, I'm waiting to see what happens with the NFL experience, the NFL Draft Theater, and the draft in Cleveland. They're expecting 50,000 people, 3 nights of shows in a vaccine-proof area. So you have to prove vaccine to get into the area, and that area is being done as a VIP and ticketed event that is running through the NFL One Pass system. So it's outside of the standard Ticketmaster everything.
You always bring me something to make me curious. I can't wait to hear more about this, Jamie. I can't wait to talk to you more about this. Thanks.
I just want to know what the bells are.
People there every day.
Yeah,
wow.
I hear the bells ringing. That must mean we are almost about to wrap this Music News Power Hour. Angela,
That would
any
be
final
1 o'clock.
thoughts? Yeah, any final thoughts for us from our UK consultant?
I'm just going to keep you posted on this weekend's events. I'm really hoping that show goes off without a hitch and that we get some good data, because if we can make it happen, y'all can make it happen.
Yes, 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 yes. Thank you. We're waiting for an update too. We're hoping for great news. Thanks for keeping us posted. Andy, any final thoughts from you?
I think hopefully we'll look back in a year and think, wasn't that a moment when we all got that breath of fresh air hearing a band setting up?
Yeah, we're going to cut back to Ellie in just a moment. I just put 2 minutes on the clock for overtime because, it's just like a football match. It's like you never know how much longer it's going to go. So we want to make sure we get that final in. And Eli, I want to start closing it out. And thank you, everybody. It's always great to see you. And thanks for all the information you bring to the table and sharing all that. So we do this every Monday through Friday. Eli.
Yeah, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 Eastern Time, right here on Clubhouse for iOS. This is Music News Power Hour, where we scour the World Wide Web for music industry headlines that we think are interesting, and we think maybe you'll find them interesting too. We open up the back half of the show for a roundtable discussion, so please do join us weekdays 12 to 1, where we check out music news headlines and open our roundtable discussion. Thank you so much to everybody who is tuning in with us today across multiple streaming platforms, and to everybody who is joining us on the stage here for our discussion. Let's take it out with Elliot, and we will see you tomorrow for Music News.
See you tomorrow.
Power Hour. Take it away,
Let's do it.
Soundcheck.
Elliot, Soundcheck. Here's the big cheers. Yeah. I feel the bass. Hey, Elliot, can't you just tell him to go play a song? Don't you have any, authority over there?
Let me see what I could do. Let's hear something. Something?
I
got some people that are just jonesing
we
to
got
hear
six.
Soundcheck.
We got 60 seconds. We got 60 seconds. Yeah.
They just want to hear live music. They haven't heard it in forever. Anything.
Oh.